All right. Almost perfectly on cue there. That was the SpaceX core calling out on our countdown nets to let the integrated teams know that all of our crew members are in their suits. They went through the appropriate checks and fit ups, and we should be seeing them walk out these doors any minute now.
I love the serendipity of that moment. That's going to be the rest of the day, right? Everything's right on cue.
Yeah, I like it.
This is certainly a big moment for them. That moment at Axiom where we have this stepping to space send-off is a big one, going from that training to operational phase. But this might be the next big one, the next big step for their mission.
Now, we have seen the crew in their suits, in the days leading up to launch. We had a dress rehearsal a couple days ago. I guess that was Friday. And so we've seen the crew walk through and rehearse all of this, but this will be the first time that we're seeing them on the day they get to go to space.
I have to imagine it feels completely different. But I also think maybe their training has made this sort of normal. They're in the mode, they have the muscle memory at this point. Something's familiar, but some things have to also be a little heightened today.
Absolutely. Now, there we can see the 3 Teslas that will take them up a short distance. It's a little bit less than a half mile from those doors to the elevator doors at the base of pad 39A. We will see Commander Peggy Whitson and pilot John Schaffner together in one of those black Teslas, while the mission specialist Ali Al-Karni and Rayana Barnawi will be partnered in another. So, like we said, it's a short drive. They could walk it, but I've done that walk. It's not great, especially, it's pretty warm in Florida already and a little humid. So we want to keep everybody cool and comfortable. So they're going to hop in these vehicles and head up.
Launch track to the countdown net. The crew is beginning their walkout to drive to the pad at this time.
It sounds like we should be seeing our AX2 crew any moment now, coming through those double doors that you see on your screen.
Now, because we here in this location, we are inside the blast area, so no family or media are allowed here, but certainly an emotionally significant moment, and we're...
Aha! And here they are, our AX2 crew. This is very exciting. This is our first live look at the AX2 crew suited up for their mission to the International Space Station. On your far left, you see Rayana Barnawi, followed by Peggy Whitson, then John Schaffner, then Ali Al-Karni. Wow, incredible. We've got a great group wave there. The team unifying for their first big step before they get in those Teslas to ride to their vehicle.
I love this view that we have here inside the vehicles. We actually get to really get an up-close look at the excitement on their faces. Right now, they are, of course, going to buckle in, and they're also going to plug in the umbilicals, the umbilicals that flow cool nitrogen-oxygen mixture air into the suit. So it helps keep them comfortable as they are making that short distance up to the pad.
Right, because as you said, they are in Florida. It can be a little warm and a little humid there. So any way to make this crew comfortable is going to be better. It's going to help them be in the right mindset and appreciate this moment. You see those gull-wing doors are closing now. I do love this camera view. It reminds me of like auto karaoke or taxi karaoke, whatever that was. And that reminds me, they do have a special playlist that I think they're playing right now for their short drive. Don't think we'll get to hear.
It looks like fist bumps and maybe some dancing to the music as well.
Yeah.
That's our Commander Peggy Whitson on the far left and pilot John Schaffner there to her left, our right center, I guess you could say. And then mission specialists Ali Al-Karni and Rayana Barnawi on the right-hand side.
What a great moment there where you saw each pair of crew members sort of grasping hands, doing fist bumps, so kind of having another level of realization for this step in their missions. It's so wonderful to see that. Love to see the teamwork too. Very special moment for Peggy, but thinking about her, She actually had her first mission to space on STS-11, which launched from this very pad 39A on June 5th, 2002, just shy of 21 years ago. She would have been transported out on this very stretch of road and ridden the same set of elevators to reach the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Now today, just everything else is basically new. The suits, the rocket, obviously, all of those things are new, but it's pretty fascinating to think of this throwback. And actually, here's a photo of then rookie astronaut Peggy Whitson.
Wow. I love that.
That's incredible. There she is in the White Room. And actually, as this crew rides out to their rocket, their commander, Peggy Whitson, wanted to share a special message with them and to each of you who have helped make today possible.
As I get ready for spaceflight, I want to say thank you to everyone who's contributed. I know there's so many of you out there that are helping to make each and every piece come together. The engineers that design things, the welders that put things together, the instructors that teach me how to operate this really very complex piece of hardware and how it's all integrated together by all the software engineers. And then we have a ground team that's helping us. And we have ground teams all over the world that are helping us be successful on our missions. And every one of you does a tremendous job to make spaceflight possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
What a fantastic message from Peggy Whitson, from STS-111 to AX-2. What a career, what phenomenal set of achievements.
You know, I remember the day, excuse me, that Axiom announced that she would be commanding this mission, and it was such an incredible moment because she really is one of the legends of NASA, and I was just so excited to see that she was going to be flying in a SpaceX Dragon. So what an exciting opportunity.
Absolutely.
Once again, those live views coming to us from inside the Teslas as the crew members of AX-2 are pulling up to their rocket. They're now getting closer and closer to Pad 39A, where Falcon 9 and our Dragon Freedom capsule await to take them to the International Space Station. Now, fun fact about the pad here, those elevator doors, excuse me, that we see here at the base of the fixed service structure, the core of this structure is original to the pad from the shuttle and Apollo days. So it is safe to say that when Peggy ascends one of these elevators, that in her shuttle days, she was using the same, the core.
Crew have arrived at the pad.
There's that call out, just letting everybody know on countdown that the crew has arrived to the pad, as we can see.
We have Peggy Whitson and John Schaffner. They've exited their vehicles first.
This is one of my favorite moments that we have during the launch sequence is right there it is.
Lean back.
The lean back, and they have to. The vehicle stands so tall there on top of the launch mount.
We'll probably say this throughout the broadcast, but they've seen the rocket before. They've been in it for dry drafts. It's got to look different on today, this day of launch.
Another fun fact about those elevators, the levels of the fixed service structure are not marked by the level number that it is. It's the height in feet that they are ascending to. So the AX-2 crew is going up to the 255-foot level, and they will ride up, and that then after they exit will take a short 10-foot stairs up to the next level. The difference being is basically the difference in height between the shuttle access arm and the Falcon 9 access arm. Beautiful view there of the backside of the transporter erector. That is the structure that we use for integration of the vehicle as well as transportation of the integrated vehicle to the launch pad. And of course, we roll it up horizontally and then lift it to the vertical launch position, within, depending on the mission, days or hours prior to liftoff.
There you see Ali and Rihanna doing an excellent lean back for that view. You can see the excitement, hands clapping.
as we mentioned before, they have rehearsed this previously in our dry dress rehearsal on Friday. They suited up, they rode out to the pad, they got in the spacecraft. So they have technically done all of this once before because, in spaceflight, we love to rehearse and practice everything. And really, like the moment for them to look up and realize that these are their last steps on Earth for a few days must be such an incredible moment. The day that they actually get to go to space, it's a moment that they've all trained for a very, very long time for.
Absolutely. So exciting. You see now in your screen, that's Peggy and John. I believe they're using the phone to make their phone calls before launch, the last calls.
Now, for those of you looking at the view here and wondering what those arrows are for, those arrows point the direction towards safety in the event that the crew needs to leave the area quickly. They just look down and they're able to follow those chevrons over to the escape pods, basically. They are baskets on a zip line that allow them to leave the tower if necessary. But it's a little counterintuitive because they're walking opposite of the arrows, which of course makes sense because they're going to space, not away.
Rihanna and Ali have gotten to the top of the stairs, and they will have their turn to use the phone for their last calls.
That's a pretty cool view there. We see them, they're just in the fixed service structure tower, not yet going across the crew access arm. That access arm, of course, is what connects the tower to the launch vehicle. We should be able to get a really great view of them as they go down the access arm, but looks like everybody's enjoying the view, as they should be.
Yeah.
And as they await their opportunity to make their final phone call.
Speaking of paths, this is the last section of their path before they ingress the vehicle, but Ali and Rayan actually reported last August to Houston to start training, and this crew has 700 to 1,000 hours of training total by the time they start their operational phase of the mission. No easy task.
Now, the folks that are dressed in the all-black bodysuits, those are members of the SpaceX suit and closeout team. So these are the SpaceX employees that will be assisting the crew through their egress and suit leak checks. For FOD, which is foreign object debris, something that we want to avoid at all costs in the spaceflight industry, we make sure that everyone, all the the personnel in this part of the phase are preventing FOD, and that is why we see them dressed in those bunny suits like we do.
Coming down the arm now, you see here's Commander Peggy Whitson and pilot John Schaffner taking a nice look at their rocket through the window there.
Smiles.
Yeah.
It's incredible, to see someone like Peggy that has been to space so much, one of the most decorated NASA astronauts ever, to still be so excited.
Yeah.
It's really heartwarming. We see here now that Peggy Whitson and John Schaffner have now arrived to the White Room. This is a great shot of where they will get to actually, right on the wall, they're going to add their signature to our basically wall of fame. Everyone,
crew at the White Room.
Everyone that flies on a Dragon mission has the opportunity to add their signature. We can see them adding their signature there to the black SpaceX logo, joining the names of the Axiom 1 crew as well as the Inspiration 4 crew.
As I understand, that Sharpie is part of the protocol. You have to have that Sharpie at the ready because it's a really special moment for the crew.
Absolutely. We can see the crew members, the closeout members that are assisting the crew with their ingress process. We can see that they're holding tablets. That is where they are tracking and following along with our electronic procedures, which we call EPROCs. And those eProcs list out every single step that each person has to carry out in order to enable a successful liftoff. And of course, we have an instantaneous liftoff window today as we are going to the International Space Station. So it's really important to keep tabs on who's doing what and how much time we have left in each activity. We do build in margin into the schedule so that if one thing takes a couple minutes longer, it's okay. We build in a little bit of flexibility there. But those tablets allow the crew to follow along. And one of those steps in the eProcs for the advanced team, which is the team of SpaceX employees that arrive there to the pad in advance of the crew to prepare for crew arrival, one of those things is to make sure that there is a Sharpie in the white room. We can see there one of the SpaceX closeout crew team members assisting.
Core on countdown, and egress started.
We want to make sure that nobody bumps the helmet or the side hatch as they enter the vehicle. We can now see pilot John Schaffner in the seat on the left and Commander Peggy Whitson in the seat on the right. The seats that they're sitting in utilize a 5-point safety harness, so it's a little bit more advanced than the seatbelt that we have in our automobiles here on Earth.
We have John and Peggy in the vehicle. Fun little note about John Schaffner, he's going to be the first Alaskan to fly to space. He was born in Fairbanks, Alaska. I've spent a lot of time there from my biology background, and it's an extreme environment. So just being from Alaska, I feel like is training enough to prepare for space.
Alaska is cold, space is cold.
Yeah, there you
they
go.
Go together. We can see there our mission specialists, Rayana Barnawi and Ali Al-Karni, still finishing up the final steps before walking down the crew access arm. They are working with the SpaceX closeout team members to do the final checks and, of course, some waves. Now entering that crew access arm and making their way down to Dragon Freedom.
Miles and waves. All right, thumbs up from the KSA mission specialists, Rihanna Barnawi and Ali Al-Karni, as they enter the white room and likely go straight to signing that SpaceX logo next to the AX-1 crew and joining their crewmate signatures. It's really incredible for this new era of space travel to be forming, where we're going to have sovereign nation representation on that signature wall. It's just really exciting to see the evolution and change of things here as we grow commercial spaceflight.
Absolutely. Space for all.
Yeah. You mentioned this closeout crew. It's really, as Peggy said in that send-off video too, it's really phenomenal to think about the size of these teams and every pair of hands that gets put on these mission preparations and to make this crew perform their mission successfully. It's incredible to think about all of those people involved. It's as though they're not traveling just for themselves or even their countries, but like you said, it's space for all. They're traveling for all of humanity.
Once again, we can see the tablets being utilized for the closeout team members to follow along with the procedures step by step. They're also marking off when a step is completed and essentially just keeping track of what is remaining, what open work remains. We can see here they're going through and doing the final zip-ups of the gloves. You know, for comfort reasons, for comfort reasons, we don't make them do final suit up, I should say final suit up with all the zippers and whatnot, so that they can still be comfortable as they're riding up and making their phone calls. And this is the final check to ensure that everything is locked in place with those zippers and fasteners. We can see now that pilot John Schaffner on the left and Commander Peggy Whitson on the right are in their seats, getting those final strap in with that seatbelt. We can see that they have tablets on their legs, which allow them to also follow along with the same procedures step by step.
There goes Ali Al-Karni, ingressing the vehicle with some words of encouragement from his crewmate, Rayana Barnawi, and as she initiates her ingress.
So as they're stepping through this side hatch, it's important to note that they won't go through this side hatch again until they're back on Earth. When they are ingressing and egressing the International Space Station, we actually use the forward hatch located at the top of the Dragon spacecraft to dock with the International Space Station. So the next time that they go through this side hatch will be when they are done and they are on a recovery vessel in either the Gulf or Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, we're getting our first looks of our full crew seated inside the Dragon. On the far left, you have Rayana Barnawi, followed by John Schaffner, Peggy Whitson, and Ali Al-Karni. Mission specialists sitting on the far left and the far right. Pilot John Schaffner on the left in the middle, and Peggy Whitson, commander, on that right middle seat. Great side-by-side shot of the rocket Dragon capsule on the left, crew on the right.
We can see there, in addition to the tablets that the crew uses to follow along with everything that's going on, they also, I just love this view. This is coming to us from our drone that is circling pad 39A. You can really appreciate, one, what a beautiful day to go to space. I love it whenever we can see this coastline come into view. But yeah, just a beautiful pad shot of 39A. Of course, this is where many of the shuttle missions launched from, but this is also the Apollo 11 launch site as well. So it's amazing to see this new era of spaceflight continuing from a site that is so historic and carries a lot of good memories for many people. As you mentioned before, Peggy Whitson having flown from this pad herself on a shuttle mission. So I just think that's so amazing that we're able to continue spaceflight from such an important piece of ground.
Absolutely. And in thinking about all of the science that's going to be performed on this AX2 mission, it made me look at the calendar and actually see that Space Lab was launched from this same pad 50 years ago to this year, so 1973. And that was, of course, a huge progressive step in doing scientific research in space. And so we have this really cool full circle moment where we're initiating a big step in commercial spaceflight that's really going to progress the research that's done in low Earth orbit, tying it back to the same pad where Peggy launched, and even before that, where Skylab, one of our influential science components of space exploration, was launched from as well. Really cool history, like you're saying.
This here an exterior view of the crew access arm and Dragon Freedom. Well, today we are carrying 4 people to the space station. Dragon can actually seat up to 7. The additional 3 crew members would be located basically under where the 4 seats that we use as we see today in lieu of cargo. So underneath the astronauts, as we see now, there is actually cargo located underneath them. Within that cargo will be things that they use like food and water, as well as the clothes that they will get to change into once they are able to take off or doff their spacesuits. Once they reach orbit, they'll be able to take off the spacesuits and change into other clothes and basically sleep in that while they make their way to the International Space Station. And we can see here the tablets that they have that they follow along with the procedures on the left leg. But on the right leg, we see another rectangular shape. That is the connection point for the umbilical. And that is where the basically the interface is for flowing, again, some more of that cooled nitrox, which is a nitrogen-oxygen mixture. That air gets flowed into the suits to help keep them comfortable. It's the same stuff that scuba divers use in their breathing tanks. The umbilical is also what connects the electrical and communication and avionics. So that's how we basically get telemetry to and from the suit, and in addition to those communication packages. Now, the seats that they are sitting in are custom sized for each astronaut. So if you think of the human body, and some people might have longer legs and shorter torsos, and vice versa, where they might have longer torsos and shorter legs. Thought we were going to get some communications there. Sounds like we had some in-capsule audio, so that's good to hear starting to come through. But yeah, all the length of the seat that they are sitting in, as well as the length of the footrest and the length of the armrest, are all sized appropriately for each astronaut. So really helps to make sure that they stay comfortable as well as safe through all phases of the mission. Their spacesuits are also custom sized, and they actually come here to Hawthorne not only for hours and hours of training on procedures and operations, but they also come on site here to try on the suits and make sure that everything is fitting well, make sure that as they go through, the motions of executing, something while they're on orbit, making sure that everything is super comfortable and nothing is rubbing in the wrong places.
Since the beginning of the space race in the 1960s, a custom patch has been used to represent and identify individual missions and their crew. It is also a long-held custom that the crew influence or outright design their own patch, injecting it with symbolism and personal elements to commemorate their journey. This crew has continued this long-standing tradition with their official AX2 mission patch. Take a look. The AX2 mission patch highlights the beauty of space, hope for the future, and the important role of the ISS to unite the best aspects of humanity. Shown prominently are the mission name, AX2, the family names of the crew members, and the flags of the United States and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the two nations represented on board today's flight. There are 5 shapes drawn as constellations, and these represent the crew's intention to focus on inspiration, education, and teaching through STEAM education initiatives. And so there's a constellation for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. The arched path leading from the Earth to space is colored lavender, which is a culture significant in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, symbolizing hospitality. That arched path and color also reflect KSA's desire to be part of the space sector and position itself as a contributor to the global space community. Then, naturally, the space station is central to the image as the destination of this crew, while Earth is featured with prominent horizon lines symbolizing optimism, hope, and inspiration. Just as you see this mission patch worn by the crew on their flight suits, this patch is currently adorning the walls of Axiom Space's Mission Control in Houston and is placed in a position of honor everywhere this crew is being supported for the duration of their mission.
We can see live views there inside of Dragon Freedom. Now, this capsule that they are flying in is a reused capsule. It has been to space before. Additionally, Falcon 9 is also a reusable vehicle. It's the world's first orbital class reusable rocket. And while today marks the first flight for this rocket, it will be the second flight for the Dragon spacecraft. Reusability is a big deal, not just for us at SpaceX, but also for the future of spaceflight. Reusing hardware, similar to how airlines reuse aircraft, allows us to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, which of course in turn drives down the cost of space access. Imagine if you had to fly on a brand new airplane every time you took a flight. Most people would not be able to afford that plane ticket. In the same way, a fully and rapidly reusable launch system is the key to becoming a multiplanetary species. To date, SpaceX has completed 39 Dragon missions, including 36 visits to the International Space Station, and 18 of those 36 missions have actually been on reflown Dragons, which is pretty awesome. As you've heard me mention before, the Dragon capsule flying today, named Freedom, will be making its second trip to space. It previously supported the NASA Crew 4 mission in April 2022, so just over a year ago. Now, as for our launch vehicle, the Falcon 9 rocket has completed 224 total launches, and 70% of those have been on reflown rockets. The booster supporting today's mission will be lifting off for the first time, as you might be able to tell by the fact that that first stage is shiny and white. The way that I often, tell people is if the paint matches the second stage, it's a new rocket. Well, speaking of firsts, today marks the first time that we're landing Falcon 9 back on land for a crew mission. Previous crew missions landed on a drone ship out in the Atlantic Ocean. So we actually see a live view now of LZ-1. That is the intended landing destination for the booster today. Landing back on land has a lot of benefits. It eliminates the need for our recovery team to be stationed out at sea for days and improves our turnaround time to get Falcon 9 ready to fly again. So I also personally love the land landings because the Space Coast can actually see and hear the booster return to LZ-1. So super exciting.
It's just under 2 hours, 36 minutes to the launch of Axiom 2. As you've seen, the 4-person crew is in the Dragon spacecraft. We're preparing for the first of a series of communication checks. These checks will be with the SpaceX core, and they verify the crew connections in Dragon through an umbilical that remains hooked up to the capsule until liftoff. As I said, the comm checks are going to be with core. That's a member of the Dragon ops team, and that operations team is located here in the Mission Control Center at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. The Falcon 9 and Dragon launch teams are located in Firing Room 4 at Kennedy Space Center. Now, next activities for the crew, once we get through that initial set of comm checks, we're going to be watching the seat rotation into the launch position. We've also got a suit leak check for several minutes, make sure everything is buttoned up and tight. And then we also have additional communications checks. These will be through RF antennas and NASA's Tracking and Data Relay System, or you may hear it referred to as TDRS for short, and those will be comm checks with the Dragon team. Now, currently, the flight hardware Falcon 9 and Dragon launch teams continue to monitor the vehicles. We're not working any significant issues at this time. We are continuing to just watch the weather. It's Florida, it's late afternoon. Ground level continues to look good. Winds are low, and we've got nice looking skies there on the camera view on the left. We are watching upper altitude winds in case some of the anvil clouds do drift over the launch site or the ascent trajectory in the last hour. Now, for upper altitude winds, SpaceX uses a Doppler radar to study wind direction and speed. And that allows the SpaceX structures and control engineers to calculate loads on the vehicle and verify that we're good to fly. The Space Force Range releases balloons for us, and that gets low altitude wind data. That supports Dragon's contingency launch commit criteria. But right now, T-minus 2 hours and 34 minutes. Everything continues to look good. Next up, we're waiting for comm checks. We see the crew right there. Make sure that their connections through the seats, through the umbilical are good. They'll talk to the core, and then we'll take it from there with the remaining series of checkouts of comms, seat rotation, and the suit leak checks. A minute ago, we saw that live view of landing zone 1. There's the crew. Waves all around. The SpaceX support team is backing out of the capsule right now as we get ready for comm checks. Bigger thing is we'll then go into seat rotation, so we want to make sure everybody's out of the way, clear the seats, make sure everything underneath the seats are all stowed for flight and ready to go. We talked about landing zone 1, showed you a live view a few minutes ago. We're hoping to get a nice view of the first stage when it comes back to Earth. About 8.5 minutes after launch, we ought to see that coming back down into that landing zone 1 view. Right now, just waiting for the word from the crew that they're ready to begin their communications checks. Coming up on 2 hours, 32 minutes till launch. On the Falcon 9 side currently, the chief engineer is mostly just going around the room, checking with the SpaceX Falcon engineers. They're continuing to top off gas pressure in the helium supply that's used to repressurize first and second stages as we head to space. The attitude control system, gas supplies, the landing leg supplies. We're at pressure. We just top it off a little bit as we continue through the countdown. Other than that, nothing significant on the Falcon 9 right now. Everybody's mostly just looking over the data, watching their systems. Our next major activity on Falcon 9 will actually occur at about T-minus 1 hour and 10 minutes. That's when we're going to begin to bleed in the fuel into the Merlin engine chambers, actually into the jacket where it's used to cool the nozzles as we head out into space. So that'll be our next major activity. We have also done flight termination system checkouts a couple hours ago. Everything looks good there. And the view you can see right now at 39A, Falcon 9, fairly quiet at the moment. Dragon also having the more activity as the crew has ingressed. And right now we're getting ready to begin checks between Dragon and the ground.
We're now T-minus 2 hours, 30 minutes, and 42 seconds until liftoff of Axiom 2. Heading to the International Space Station, we have a T0 time of 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:37 p.m. Pacific Time. As John mentioned, and as you can see on screen, weather's cooperating at the moment. We can see the exterior of the capsule there. This is actually a great shot because not only can you see the service section, which is where the crew is, you can also see another great view of the trunk. This is where we are able to put unpressurized cargo, and that trunk is the part that will be jettisoned before the crew actually return to Earth. Great view coming to us from our helicopter circling the pad. You can also see below the trunk the white second stage, below that the black inner stage where we have the grid fins attached, and then below that the white first stage. We are standing by for communications checks with the crew. So it will be a series of checks to ensure that all seats are able to communicate with the teams, both at the Launch Control Center in Florida, as well as here in Mission Control in Hawthorne, California. After we get through comm checks, we will perform leak checks on the suits. That's important, just to ensure that all of those zippers on the suits and the fasteners are all in the, in their final position. They're closed. And we pressurize the suit in order to basically test that it can hold that pressure over a period of time. In the event of an egress scenario, or excuse me, not egress, of a launch escape scenario after liftoff, the spacesuit actually functions as a mini spaceship within the spaceship. It's able to hold that pressure while the crew return to Earth. Once those suit leak checks are complete, the closeout team will then close the side hatch. As I mentioned before, the side hatch is the door that they use to go in and out of the capsule while they are on Earth. the hatch that they use while they are on station is actually the forward hatch, which is located under the nose cone, which you can distinguish there at the very top of the Dragon capsule, the pointy part that has that diagonal line that indicates where the nose cone is. And that will rotate back. It'll open up and expose the forward hatch. And that's what the Dragon capsule uses to autonomously dock with the International Space Station. So once that side hatch is closed by the closeout team here on the ground, it will...
SpaceX Dragon, com check from seat 2.
Loud and clear, Peggy, from SpaceX. How me?
We have you loud and clear.
It sounds like these com checks...
All right, good afternoon. Please let us know when you get to step 1.3 and are ready for umbilical com checks.
Locale. And SpaceX Dragon, we're at step 1.3, ready for a com check.
SpaceX copies. Stand by for umbilical com checks.
Locale.
Great view of the Axiom 2 crew there as we are standing by for those com checks.
Commander, pilot, MS1, MS2, com check.
Commander has you loud and clear.
Pilot loud and clear. MS1 loud and clear. MS2 loud and clear.
And core loud and clear. Umbilical com check complete. Please report when ready for seat rotation.
All right, all good news there. All those com checks checked out, and we are now...
SpaceX Dragon, we are ready for seat rotation.
SpaceX copies. Will report when initiating.
As the name indicates, these seats are going to rotate back into the launch position. This will enable the crew to have easier access to those crew displays located above their heads.
Dragon SpaceX initiating seat rotation.
Dragon copies.
We can see those seats now rotating back into the launch position. This moment must feel like that moment on a roller coaster when you're in position to go.
We are at T-minus
Dragon
2 hours.
SpaceX, seats are in the launch position.
Dragon copies.
Okay, a comm there confirming that the seat rotation has been completed. We are at T-minus 2 hours and 22 minutes and 6 seconds from liftoff of the AX-2 mission from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, carrying 4 Axiom astronauts, Peggy Whitson, John Schaffner, Ali Alkarni, and Rihanna Barnawi, aboard the Crew Dragon spacecraft. It's been a very exciting day so far. The crew shifted their sleep cycle to match that of the International Space Station and are currently inside Dragon going through their pre-launch checklists.
As of now, the astronauts have already completed their comms checks. That helps to make sure that they can communicate with the teams on the ground. Their seats have rotated from upright to their reclined launch position, which allows them to see and access the display panels there above their head. Up next will be the leak checks to make sure their spacesuits are in proper working condition before liftoff and to do final inspection of the spacecraft. So at this point in time, we're going to stand by, await for those suit checks. We expect them to happen here in the next couple of minutes. After those are complete, the closeout team will be closing the side hatch for flight. That's one of the key...
Dragon SpaceX, you are go for Section 2 suit leak check preparation.
Copy. Go Section 2, suit leak check preparation.
Once the suit leak checks are complete and the closeout team closes the side hatch for flight, things will start moving a lot quicker. The opportunity for going back and rechecking, everything is still, we're able to do that before the side hatch closes. So that's why we wait to get through the comm checks, the suit leak checks, the seat rotation. We wait to close the side hatch until all of those are complete so that in the event that, for example, if a zipper isn't quite in place, one of the closeout team members can re-enter the capsule, help the crew member get that into place and re-perform the suit leak check or whatever it might be. Now, after we get that side hatch closed, the closeout team will depart the pad, and then around T-minus 1 hour and 30 minutes, we'll do launch escape system checks. And then we fast forward to T-minus 42 minutes, and things really start happening in rapid succession.
SpaceX Dragon, care is complete. We're ready for leak check.
Dragon copies and concurs. You are go for Section 3 suit leak check.
Copy. Go for Section 3 suit leak check.
All right, so that communication back and forth there between Commander Peggy Whitson and SpaceX Core, or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer. On that console today is Arthur Berrialt. That is the primary voice that we will be hearing communicating to the crew members. That back and forth just confirming that the crew is ready to go to march into that next step, which, as they said, would be the suit leak checks. Essentially, we inflate the suits to a certain pressure for a couple of minutes, and we monitor that pressure level during that time to basically ensure and check that we're not losing any pressure. If we see a pressure loss, that's an indication that something isn't quite fitting right. Maybe there's a little bit of FOD in the visor, so it's not closing completely, or the zipper might not be zipped up completely. So one of the closeout team members will go in and help resolve whatever is causing that, and then they, in that case, would reperform the suit leak check. But when we did a dress rehearsal on Friday, we got to this step, and they breezed right through it.
Yeah.
So. You can actually kind of see the crew there just resting pretty comfortably while these leak checks are underway. So suit leak checks are now underway. We're just holding that pressure and monitoring that pressure level in all 4 suits to ensure that there's no leakage. For those of you that have just recently joined us, we have mission specialist Rayana Barnawi on the left, the far left seat. That is seat number 4. And seat number 3 is pilot John Schaffner. Next to him, Commander Peggy Whitson, and then on the far right in seat number 1, Ali Al-Karni. We can see the SpaceX closeout team there preparing for the side hatch closure, but like I said, we won't complete that until we have confirmation of 4 good suit leak checks. Now, the area that we see here, the white room, is environmentally controlled. That helps to ensure that Florida insects, humidity, none of that gets into the capsule. That we're able to maintain a clean environment.
You could see them inspecting with the light. You really want to go over that with a fine-tooth comb.
Dragon, we see 4 good suits.
SpaceX copies and concurs. 4 good suits. At this time, closeout team will perform final steps in preparation for side hatch closure. Proceed to section 4, side hatch close, and report when ready to close hatch.
We'll go for Dragon.
All right, good news there. We have 4 good suit leak checks. Closeout team now preparing to close the side hatch. Duke, as you mentioned, yeah, they are really inspecting that side hatch to ensure that we get a good seal there. Very similar to the suit leak checks that we just performed, we will do a leak check on that side hatch where we inflate the seal around the hatch. Again, to a certain pressure for a certain amount of time. We monitor that pressure for any decay or pressure loss.
And SpaceX Dragon, we are ready for the closeout team to close the hatch.
SpaceX copies.
I think that's a very polite way of saying it's time for them to go so we can go to space. As I mentioned before, the primary voice that we hear communicating with the crew is the SpaceX Core, which stands for Crew Operations Resource Engineer. That person on console, while it's not the same individual through all phases of flight, but that seat is there and is filled by different individuals throughout the mission, and that is the primary communication to the crew. That person is responsible for updating them on statuses and confirming with the crew that they are ready to proceed to the next step, as we've been hearing them that back and forth this morning. Or I should say this afternoon now at this point. Once we get the side hatch closed, we can see that there's still a closeout team member there under their feet, kind of in that cargo location. it's kind of hard to visualize, but if you want to compare it between the view on the left and the view on that right, on the right-hand side, that closeout team member.
Dragon SpaceX, comm check over ground stations.
Dragon has you loud and clear over ground station.
Core loud and clear. Ground station comm check complete. Stand by for TDRS comm check.
Should be just a few minutes from side hatch closing, but until then we still have a good view of the crew in the capsule with one of the closeout crew members in the lower part of the screen there. You see them working on their tablets that the crew has. They each have one. Nice view of the Dragon capsule on your left and some great weather out there.
We can see that final closeout crew member making the last preparations and now popping out. So they have now egressed and are back in that white room. As I was saying before, it's kind of hard to visualize if you've never been inside the Dragon capsule, you know, kind of the orientation of where the viewpoint is to the right. Imagine that the crew tablet that we see Peggy and John referencing and working off of is kind of around where those two dots are on the left-hand side of your screen, those two dots on the exterior of the Dragon capsule. You can kind of imagine if you were to draw a line between those two dots, that's roughly where the crew display panels are. And then the crew are essentially laying on their backs, or kind of on their backs, not completely, but they're laying on their backs underneath that. So when we saw that closeout team member there under their feet, if you imagine somebody kind of working in the area.
Dragon SpaceX, comm check over TDRS.
Dragon has you loud and clear over TDRS.
Core loud and clear. TDRS comm check complete. Stand by for comm checks with DC, MD, and LD in the launch configuration.
Standing by.
Dragon, this is DC on countdown 1. Comm check.
DC, we have you loud and clear.
DC, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with MD.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1, comm check.
MD, we have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, MD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
MD on Dragon to ground, we have you loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, LD on countdown 1, comm check.
We have you loud and clear on countdown 1, LD.
LD is you loud and clear as well. Stand by for my comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, LD, Dragon to ground 1, comm check.
We have you loud and clear, LD.
LD also has you loud and clear.
Dragon SpaceX, launch configuration and comm checks complete.
Dragon copies.
All right, so we're finishing up with those comm checks. And I want to point out for those that might be tuning in for the first time or might not be familiar with the structure of those comm checks, that they are actually important. They do mean something. So when we hear, for example, we heard Dragon MD on countdown 1. That is a structure basically saying, hey, who they are calling. So the mission director or MD was hailing the Dragon capsule. So they say Dragon MD, then to identify who is hailing them, and then on the countdown net in which they are, and then the communication net, that the loop that they are speaking from. And that's important whenever you have multiple loops and you want to know who's talking where. So in that instance, we heard, the mission director, who for today is Ken Gamerick, SpaceX mission director, basically, continuing with those communication checks. And once we have all of those wrapped up, we will be able to continue on, and that the next step would basically be to perform, close the side hatch and perform that leak check that we were talking about a little bit ago. Yeah, we can see those closeout team members there as they are standing by for the go to close the side hatch. As we saw earlier, they were inspecting the side hatch very carefully for any foreign object debris, which in the aerospace world is known as FOD, F-O-D. And we can see them there just doing their final team checks. You can see the crew there on the right-hand side of your screen following along with the procedures. They do not have games on their tablets, so that's a question I sometimes get. The tablets, as well as the crew display above John and Peggy's head, allows the crew to stay informed on what is currently happening as well as what will be upcoming. So as we said before, we should be wrapping up those communication checks, and then we will get the go to proceed with side hatch closure. And the other thing that we heard during those comm checks was somebody saying loud and clear. That is also an important structure to responding. You could have communication that is loud but garbled. Alternatively, you could have communication that is soft but clear or crisp in the ear. And we want everybody to be able to hear it. So that's why you hear them say loud and clear, because that's basically confirming the volume as well as the crispness of the audio that is being received. Now, in the event that something was not loud and clear, we would be able to tweak it, perhaps the volume levels on the ground side and how they're being fed into the astronauts' ears, as they do have basically custom fit earbuds in their ears for those communication purposes. Some claps and waves. I have a feeling the closeout team is saying goodbye to the crew.
Yep.
Dragon SpaceX closeout team is taking final steps in preparation for side hatch closure. Stand by for transition to pad hatch closed. Ensure all items are secure from now through launch.
Copy. Closeout teams performing the final actions. We have secured all items prior to launch, and we're ready for the flight computer transition.
So great news there, as we suspected, the closeout team saying farewell and fair wishes to the Axiom 2 crew. They're now getting ready to close the side hatch. Once again, this room is environmentally controlled, so it helps keep out humidity, insects, which would be considered FOD, and ultimately just help keep that environment clean. We're now progressing with the side hatch closure. They're going to torque it shut. They will now attach equipment that will allow them to inflate the seal to pressurize, pressurize the seal around the side hatch. And as we mentioned before, very similar to the suit leak checks that are performed, that the seal will be inflated to a pressure that will be monitored over a few minutes, and basically monitoring to ensure that there is no loss of pressure, or also known as pressure decay. And if we did see a loss in pressure during this leak check, it would be an indication that
Dragon SpaceX closeout team has secured the side hatch and has started the side hatch leak check per 4.3.
Dragon copies. We'll follow along.
So if we were to see a pressure loss during this leak check, it would be an indication that something with the seal isn't sitting quite right, in which case the closeout team would be able to reopen the hatch, wipe it down, inspect it. Of course, whenever we are helping the crew, or rather the reason that we help the reason we help the crew get into or ingress the capsule is not only to help make sure that they don't injure themselves or they don't injure their suit, it's also to ensure that they don't accidentally bump that side hatch during that ingress process. We want to make sure that that everything is able to really keep that seal. For that reason, we actually put protective fixturing that is removed right before the side hatch closure. We put that protective fixture there to help ensure that that side hatch is covered during ingress. So the leak check is now underway. As I said before, we're going to hold this pressure for a couple of minutes and just monitor it for any pressure loss. For those of you that have just recently joined, we are now just under 2 hours until liftoff of Axiom 2. It will be heading to the International Space Station. We have a targeted T0 time of 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:37 p.m. Pacific. Weather continues to look really, really great. Almost picture perfect, I would say. Over the last 24 hours, we did see an improvement in our weather conditions, so something called the POV, or percentage of violation, which is basically our chances of violating one of the weather rules that exist and we have to follow for that liftoff time, and that percentage decreased to only 25%. So everything's still continuing to look good in terms of an on time, that liftoff targeting 5:37 p.m. Eastern. So we are now undergoing the leak check of the side hatch. This side hatch will remain closed until the crew splashes down in 10 days from now, weather dependent. We can see there inside the white room as the closeout team is performing that leak check. This is such a great view because we saw the astronauts add their signatures to the wall there earlier right before they got into the Crew Dragon. This was a tradition that SpaceX started with the Demo 2 mission. NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley were the first to add their signatures to the white room wall. And of course, the Axiom 2 crew got to add their signatures along with the Axiom 1 signatures and Inspiration 4 there along the X that we see on the right-hand side.
Great to think about the representation in all of those signatures too. You have, of course, all of those NASA astronauts and various countries that are involved in that space program, and now with that SpaceX logo and the private astronauts that are going up, and now the sovereign nation companies, or sovereign nations that will be joining for private launches like today with Axiom. It's really cool to see that diversity and that breadth of representation.
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, we are operating to a countdown today. That countdown helps ensure that all the teams are tracking to the same milestones for that T0 time. We are running with plenty of margin at this point in time. We are now awaiting the results of the side hatch leak check. Of course, we build margin into the timeline to allow us to reperform steps that might need to be done. So at this point in time, we've just been flying through all the milestones. So we are tracking with great margin at this point.
Okay, well, while we wait for results on that, we're going to go ahead and look at the crew a little bit more deeply. All right, the AX-2 mission commander is Axiom Space Director of Human Spaceflight and retired NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. During the next 10 days, she'll extend her record as the American with the most amount of time spent in space. Here is a closer look at Peggy.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Rocket Tranquility.
I saw the first guys walk on the moon, Neil and Buzz, in 1969. I was 9 years old, and I thought, what a cool job. Of course, I was a farm kid from Iowa. How was I ever going to do that? I didn't tell anybody from the time I was 9, raising chickens and learning to fly and all that. I wasn't telling people that I wanted to become an astronaut because it sounded like an impossible dream. And it wasn't until the first females were selected and I graduated from high school, and that to me was when I decided, hey, maybe this is real. Maybe I really can be an astronaut. And it became a goal instead of just a dream.
Peggy Whitson became the first female commander of the International Space Station. She also set records in these categories: most days in space for a U.S. astronaut, and more hours spacewalking than any other woman.
She understands what human spaceflight really means when you approach it with that awe and respect and humility. It's like you're doing it justice.
The experience of just being in space is incredibly special and unique, but to me the most important perspective is perspective. You look out the window, you see planet Earth, and it gives you this perspective of how important that we're all one. And we're building this place out in space to replicate the piece parts that we have on Earth. I'm really excited to take this crew up to the space station, number one, because they're all rookies, and this is going to be fun to just relive those first moments with them as they get into space and get to see their excitement and their expressions and joy.
AX2 means there's a 2.0 to her career, and now she gets to help a wonderful company to take that next step in its mission.
Her congeniality and her manner, extremely comforting, and it gave me the confidence that I could do this.
She is inspiring. Personally, I look up to her and I want to be like her.
I don't know. I love everything about Peggy. She's my role model.
I'm Axiom astronaut Peggy Whitson.
The pilot for AX-2 is private astronaut John Schaffner. A STEAM advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast, he's been a pilot since the age of 17 and participates in extreme sports from hang gliding to base jumping to high-performance racing. Let's get to know a little bit more about John.
Why do you do these things?
Well, they're fun. They help you find your edge. You know, I would say limit, but we don't really want to find the limit. You want to find the edge, I think.
John is a human dynamo, and he is multifaceted, and they can go off in any different direction. But that's just the way he is. You know, it's over and above.
I was probably the outlier in the group. I was always striking out and the one climbing trees and on roofs and setting things on fire. I grew up near an airport. I had access to airplanes. I started flying when I was 15. Got my license shortly when I was eligible. It was just something I did. In the early 60s, actually 1963, when Jim and I began flying, it was big news. It's easy for an 8-year-old at that time to fall in love with space. That was our fun. Cardboard boxes, rolling down hills, emulating space training, Gemini pilots. So space just became part of the fabric of me, and it never left.
I'd heard about private astronaut travel before. A little bit of research pulled up Axiom Space and their mission.
Well, my wife brought it to my attention. She saw the news article of Axiom flying and said, hey, you can finally go to space. And the moment I heard about this opportunity, I knew I would be on board.
He's on a mission to encourage young minds to use their imagination. And from there, he says, possibilities are endless.
I'm taking a patch for the Middlesboro Independent School Systems. This is their middle school who last year actually decided to become a STEM certified school. What I want to do is show teachers and educators the value of listening and paying attention to what is in a student and help nurture what they see in them. It's hard to go against your nature, but if you can listen to yourself and follow that voice, then you have an obligation to nurture that. I'm John Schaffner, and I'm the pilot of AX-2.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as mission specialist, Ali Al-Karni is an Air Force captain in the Royal Saudi Air Force.
We will be commencing health check for launch escape system. Expect a momentary flight computer state change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
And Dragon copies, we saw that.
Having trained at King Faisal Air Academy, as well as multiple bases in the U.S., Ali has flown as a fighter pilot for 12 years. Ali was selected as an astronaut in 2020. Here's more on Ali.
I grew up in the southwest region of Saudi Arabia, in a very small town called Sabt al-Alaya. I've always wondered about planes and how they fly. Back then in Saudi Arabia, we did not have a lot of places or flying academies you could apply to. So I have to go and find a place that could train me. That's why I applied for the Air Force Academy to be a fighter pilot. The best moment for me is once I hit the throttles in full AB and the aircraft start rolling down the runway. And as I take off, I watch my shadow and see how fast I'm going. That gives me a joy that I cannot describe. I am Ali Al-Karni, and I am Mission Specialist 1 on AX-2. Being selected to be part of this mission make me privileged and honored to represent my country. I was really surprised about the results out of the announcement. People are loving it. People are super supportive of the mission. I consider myself a newly married. I've been married for 3 years now. And I've had my daughter. She's 12 months old. And I want to share with them how big it is what I'm about to do. It is an amazing opportunity to be on top of a rocket filled with fuel and gas that are going to boost you to space. The team is amazing. We have worked so much to make sure we have a good crew coherence, and right now I can say that we do complement each other. Every single one of us has been trained to do everything regarding this mission.
I would like to thank Axiom Space for enabling us to go back to space and giving us this opportunity.
I have an amazing family. They are supportive of me throughout my career, and I want them to know before I step into the rocket that I love them, and I will always be there, whether physically or mentally, with them, and I'll do whatever it takes to make them feel happy and loved.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and also serving as mission specialist, Rayana Barnawi has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. Here's a closer look at Rayana.
It's a historic moment for Saudi Arabia and the entire Arab world.
Saudi Arabia will be sending its first ever female astronaut into space.
I was always into exploring new things. Research was one of the things that fulfilled that feeling for me. Trying to experiment, finding a piece of the puzzle that could solve a mystery. I never thought that I will ever be going to space, but at the same time, it feels like a dream come true. It's an overwhelming feeling, of course. Home for me is a small town. My dad had a little farm. He taught us how to plant. That was one of the first experiments. That was one of the most fascinating feelings. My grandmother. To me, she is my role model. I can say that my grandma is my biggest fan, and I'm very glad that I have my grandma's support.
Saudi Arabia will be sending its first woman astronaut to the International Space Station. Rayana Barnawi, a biomedical researcher, is part of a private mission operated by Axiom Space.
Rayana, she is an amazing scientist. She's done stem cell research and breast cancer research, and we are really excited to have her on board the space station doing some of the same types of things in space.
It honestly feels like I am representing all Saudis' ambition, all female and all researchers as well. It's a big honor to be able to go to space and at the same time do the things that you love the most.
It's not just that you have a nation that's proud of you, but you are creating the dream and the opportunity for this next generation to become the next space engineers, and creating the idea that the infinite is possible and that space is a true opportunity.
زي ما قال سمو ولي العهد محمد بن سلمان، نحن دولة للحالمين. أي حد عنده حلم يقدر يحلم عشان يوصل، وبدعم منه وبدعم من السعودية كاملة بإذن الله احنا حنوصل للهدف اللي احنا نبغاه. I am Saudi National Astronaut Rayana Barnawi.
We're now at T-minus 1 hour, 42 minutes and 55 seconds until liftoff of AX-2. We have confirmation that the side hatch was closed, and we got a good leak check. So everything is continuing to progress on time.
Great. And as operations continue, we want to provide an overview of some of the science and research activities planned for the AX-2 mission. To help us unpack the breadth of Axiom-managed payloads is one who has helped every principal investigation team prepare for this mission, our very own chief scientist, Dr. Lucy Lowe. She's at Kennedy Space Center in Florida with Axiom Space Director of Digital Strategy, Sonia Gavankar-McKay. Sonia, great to see you, and we're excited to understand what's ahead in the next couple of weeks for our crew.
Thanks so much, Duke. It's great to be here with all of you as the excitement really builds toward launch. We're just a few miles away. In fact, you may be able to see the Falcon 9 rocket with the AX2 crew on board just over my shoulder. And yes, I'm joined with Axiom Space Chief Scientist for Microgravity Research, Dr. Lucy Lowe. Lucy, how excited are you for what's to come?
Hi, Sonia. I mean, it's a fantastically exciting mission. There is an absolute massive amount of research that the crew is going to be doing, and I can't wait to see them get started.
And there is a massive amount of research they have to do, and we have just a little bit of time to cover it, so let's dive right in. It is packed for it, but what has been the scientific strategy for this mission, and what do we expect to see?
So the scientific strategy is really continuing what we did on AX1, which is expanding access to microgravity for a whole new global community of researchers. So we're really excited to welcome on board our Saudi Arabian partners and see them do the research they want to do. We also have some opportunities to expand commercial opportunities by manufacturing products in space that could be beneficial for life here on Earth. So we have a glut of projects that are going to be doing all kinds of stuff about in-space manufacturing. So we're really excited about those.
Now, you've organized the portfolio into 5 main categories, and we're going to kind of touch on each one of them very briefly. Let's start with physical sciences. I noticed that from the list there is radiation protection research as well as some storm-related research that is looking at how weather and climate and seeding clouds. Tell me what this all means.
Exactly. So we have a really fun experiment that's brought from us from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia looking at cloud seeding. So they're looking at how silver iodide crystals can actually form water vapor in a specially designed chamber. So they're not only understanding how cloud seeding could be more effective here on Earth, but they're also looking with a vision to perhaps extraterrestrial agriculture, so maybe growing crops on the moon and in Mars in future.
Wow.
We also have projects looking at radiation shielding, so the sun spits out a bunch of radiation. So looking at how different kinds of polymers could actually protect the electronics on the space station could actually help with future spacecraft design. And then finally, you mentioned storms. We have some really fun projects where the crew are actually going to be trying to capture images of what we call transient luminous effects, which are events which occur just above thunderstorms at the same time that lightning strikes. And we can't see them from the ground because we're underneath the clouds. So on top of the clouds, we can see these phenomena, and it helps us understand more about our own weather and climate down here on Earth.
Excellent. So the next portfolio is life sciences. Research includes DNA, nanomaterials, and reprogramming skin cells to help create regenerative medicine. There's also research planned to build on AX1 science modeling tumor organoids to better predict and treat cancers. Can you break down a few of those for us and tell me again what we can expect to see, what the astronauts will be doing up in space?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I refer to some of those in-space manufacturing projects, so the DNA-inspired nanomaterial that you referred to could actually be used as a therapeutic delivery agent in future, or as a scaffolding for degenerating joints. We have also projects looking at 3D bioprinted tissues, so looking at liver and kidney and seeing how they respond in microgravity, which could be potentially very informative for helping us understand regenerative medicine efforts. And then we have a whole other project on stem cell manufacturing, which could actually then help with lots of kind of clinical applications here on Earth. So lots of research on that end, not even to mention all of the human research that our crew are very willing participants in, where they're doing all kinds of experiments to see how the human body responds to space, how it adapts to microgravity, and how we can use that knowledge not only to make space travel more safe for humans in future, but also help us understand our own physiology back here on Earth a little bit better.
Okay, on to tech. The research being conducted here seems to be how can we automate more to take up less time doing things like data transfer. We know about that on Earth. What's it like up in space? Making communications with Earth easier and literally tracking where supplies and materials are on board. I mean, they have a lot of space up there inside the building, right? So they have to be able to track where everything is, loose bolts and whatnot. What stands out to you in this research?
So it's interesting you mentioned how much space there is up there because there's fairly limited space.
Yeah,
so we have some,
more.
They can't exactly. So we have some Axiom technology demonstrations where we're demoing some of our own technologies that we can use on Axiom Station in future. But we also have some really fun technology demonstrations from our partners that are sampling the air inside the ISS. They're using special sensors called quartz crystal microbalances that can detect tiny molecules in the air and tell us a bit about the air quality inside the ISS. And then we have a really fun project from the MIT Media Lab where they're looking at what they call a gravity countermeasures loading suit or a skin suit, which actually models some of the effects of gravity on our crew, and so it helps them prevent some of the physical deconditioning that astronauts see when they go into space.
Really important research.
Absolutely.
What do you think the air is like up there?
I hear it smells of electronical equipment.
Oh, okay.
So
we'll wait
yeah.
for those little cubes to tell us a little bit more information and figure out
yeah.
how we can scrub it. Okay. Partnerships also very important with Axiom Space since it started, and it's really great to hear about all of this research that's really coming from so many institutions, educational organizations. Lucy, how are you seeing the commercial opportunities evolve, and what's the goal for us long term?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So we continue to expand our partnerships with a number of global research communities, which is really exciting, seeing really exciting research come in from new communities, new organizations, new researchers that have historically not had access to microgravity, and now we can provide that. But as I said, we're also very interested in opening up these new commercial economic opportunities to do things in space that can create materials or biomedical products that can benefit life here on Earth. Because that's ultimately what we want to do at Axiom, is everything we do in space, we want to be benefiting every human everywhere, which includes not just the astronauts, but all of us back down here as well.
Well, thank you so much, Lucy, for all your time. We're going to be talking to you during the mission as well to find out a little bit more about what's been transpiring up in space, what we expect to see down here, and so much more will come our way. Thank you so much, Lucy, for your time.
Thank you, Sonia.
Well, that is amazing groundbreaking work that we're going to be seeing, the additional insights of these studies, and so much. You can follow the efforts as they play out on orbit. Just visit us at axiomspace.com/AX2Research. We're going to send you back now to Hawthorne, to Duke and Kate. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Well, switching gears a bit, Axiom Space is also working to create partnerships with companies that you wouldn't typically expect to hear about going to space. Some of those companies end up with some representation on board a mission as well.
Besides the crew, the Dragon is also carrying hundreds of kilograms of supplies and resources for the mission. Most of these materials are essential as supplies, but every mission has a few fun surprises. One of those that's often discussed is the highly anticipated microgravity indicator. This is actually the only item inside Dragon that isn't secured at launch. Once the crew successfully reach orbit, the microgravity indicator will begin to float, allowing all of us to visually see what we've completed during the launch phase of the mission.
And to reveal the indicator, a fifth crew member named Gigi here is a very special greeting from Sharon, John, and a few of the younger Axiom family members who helped prepare the indicator for this flight.
Hi, it's Sharon John, Build-A-Bear CEO and President. We're incredibly thrilled to be a part of the AX2 mission to space. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity. We also wanted to be sure and wish good luck to all of the brave, wonderful crew members that are headed off to space, and hope that an extra fifth furry crew member brings you luck. With that in mind, we wanted to also send you off with a very special heart ceremony. As some of you may know, we have heart ceremonies at Build-A-Bear workshops, but we've created a really special one for today.
So what we're gonna do, guys, is we're gonna do a special heart ceremony. So what you're gonna do is you guys are gonna warm up your hearts like this, or rub them to get them nice and warm. Then you guys are gonna pat those hearts to get them started. Pat, pat, pat.
Rub it on your hands so they can steer the spaceship and stay on course.
Then you guys are gonna rub it on your ears so they can hear mission control loud and clear.
And rub it on your eyes so they have the best view of Earth. So let's have a safe and successful mission. Let's put the heart in our hands, hold it really tight, close your eyes and make a great big wish for them.
Then you guys are gonna give it a really big kiss. Mwah! Good job, guys.
It's overflowing. Lots of love. Let's see it. All right. Thank you so much. We'll be thinking about all these hearts when we get to space and our little bear's floating, okay?
Wow, that was unbearably cute, if I do say so myself. We actually have a replica of the microgravity indicator on board with us here. This is a special edition Axiom Space Build-A-Bear, just like the one you saw in the video. Gigi is wearing the AX-EMU spacesuit that NASA's next generation of moonwalkers will use during the Artemis 3 mission, which will land the next humans on the moon in 2025. Using innovative technologies and a flexible design, these spacesuits will enable more exploration of the lunar surface than ever before. Speaking of Artemis 3 and these lunar missions, SpaceX is playing a significant role in that mission as well.
That's right. We are incredibly honored to be a part of NASA's Artemis program to establish a sustainable presence on the moon to prepare for missions to Mars. SpaceX will conduct an uncrewed demonstration mission to the moon with our new Starship vehicle prior to the Artemis 3 mission, marking humanity's first return to the lunar surface in more than 50 years. Starship's early flight tests, followed by regular Starlink deployment missions and propellant transfer demonstrations, are also directly advancing NASA's Artemis program, along with SpaceX's ongoing mission to make life multiplanetary.
A big thanks to Sharon John and Build-A-Bear for their support in our mission. We're all really excited to see Gigi floating around inside the Dragon in the next couple hours. To learn more about Gigi and all the exciting efforts on this mission, visit axiomspace.com.
We're just over 90 minutes away as the Axiom 2 crew awaits its 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time liftoff from 39A at Kennedy Space Center. Right now, a quick status update. The crew's inside the capsule. The side hatch is closed as of about 30 minutes ago. Leak checks are complete. We've also had completion of comm checks between both Dragon and Falcon ground teams with the crew. Looking at weather right now, the weather continues to be good for launch and any contingencies if needed. Local pad weather continues to be that 25% probability of violation. We'll just watch over the last hour and a half if we get any clouds drifting over from inland. Conditions in the Atlantic are also good should we need a contingency landing somewhere along the eastern seaboard. Falcon 9 team will begin bleed in at T-minus 1 hour and 10-minute mark of the Merlin engines. And the latest update we've heard from the SpaceX team out at 39A, the support crew is leaving the crew access arm. With the hatch closed, all their work is finished. So right now, everything is on schedule at T-minus 1 hour, 30 minutes, and 28 seconds.
And with our crew safely inside Dragon Freedom and continuing their preparation for launch, let's head back over to Sonia Gavankar-McKay at Kennedy Space Center for a conversation with a member of the Saudi Space Commission. Sonia, this is an exciting moment for many around the world, but what does this mission mean for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
That's a great question, Duke. Our work with KSA and any partner begins just years before the launch date. We started talking with KSA about 4 years ago, and like any commercial partnership, there are a lot of details to work out, and that's especially true with the U.S. commercial company signing with a direct agreement with a foreign nation. Once you get through the negotiation process and get to the actual signing of contracts, which took place in 2022, then you have to get to work planning, preparing, training for the mission. Not only are these partnerships beneficial for Axiom Space and our goals of building history and expanding access to low Earth orbit, but for all, but we're enabling nations like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, organizations and individuals to achieve their goals in space. Joining me now from the Saudi Space Commission to share how this mission and our partnerships are so critical to their ambitions beyond Earth. We are joined now with just the perfect person to talk to. Thanks so much for joining me here today, Ibrahim.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the ambitions of the kingdom. What brought you to this moment?
Of course, like I'd say, like, you know, on the personal side, I'm a space enthusiast, and I know like there are so many space enthusiasts there in Saudi, and we're so excited like to be here. And this is the first mission of the Saudi Astronaut Corps, and this program started to begin, and it will be a sustainable program.
Right. But why now? Why take this big leap right now?
Well, there's always a right time for something. This is like a huge thing. Space is becoming like more evolved now, and this is the right time for space. And we see like so many nations are joining the space race, and Saudi has been there 38 years ago, actually, with Prince Sultan being the first Arab and first Muslim to go to space, and we're continuing this work in going with the first female Saudi and Muslim astronaut.
It's such a momentous moment. We talked about the first steps. We talked about the evolution. Long term, what are the goals for SSC?
So the national space strategy aims to have the kingdom to be a key player in the space sector. matter.
Right.
This is just the beginning. This is just a first program, and this only looks at the sector of the human spaceflight, and we see this mission as a stepping stone that will continue to take presence in space.
And what does the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have that's unique that you bring to the table?
I think you could know, like Rihanna's, like for today, she's unique, becoming the first Muslim and Arab to go to the ISS, and also first. It's actually going to be the 6th country to have two from the same national astronauts in the station.
So this is, like we said, the first step. It's an exciting step. How do you feel right now?
Oh, my feeling, I can't really explain my feeling. I don't think that I have enough words to express my feeling. We're looking at the countdown. We're so excited. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time. We're so excited. We're so happy. We're tuning in to watch the launch. We can't wait to see them in orbit.
And you've spent a lot of time in Houston with us, right? Through all of the training, you've been there. You've kind of been training with these astronauts in the same way. Do you feel like you're part of the crew, or do you feel like a support system?
You know, to be honest, I wanted to be in the cargo, actually.
You're going to be a stowaway?
Yes, yeah. I really wanted to go with them. I feel like I am with them in the journey. I enjoyed like every moment. This is the most exciting moment, of course. I can't wait to see them in orbit, and I can't wait to see them back again. And I'm going to feel like I'm in space with them, but without the zero gravity, of course.
That's right. Well, it's been a pleasure to work with you and your entire team. I know that your entire Kingdom of Saudi Arabia feels like you're going along with this mission. As everybody looks upward to the skies for this mission, you do feel like you're part of the crew going along. So thank you for being such a wonderful partner with us. And we want to all stow away too. So we'll figure out a way for maybe the next time we go on another mission together.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'll be ready.
You'll be
I am
ready.
trained and ready.
You are. Thank you so much, Ibrahim.
Thank you.
This is an exciting time for so much of us here. We're so grateful for this partnership and so many things that we're going to achieve today together. Naturally, today we are focused on the launch of AX2 and the mission, celebrating the beginning of their 8-day mission. But it is interesting on how much of this mission serves its own chapter in the development of expanding opportunities in low Earth orbit. This crew is benefiting from prior missions, including AX1, as a way of passing the baton to this crew here and marking it as that special moment. Here are just a few words from Michael Lopez Alegria, Larry Connor, Mark Pathy, and Itan Stebe of the crew of AX1. Take a look.
Dear Peggy, John, Ali, and Rayana, together with you, the whole IKEA team are counting down the days, the hours, the seconds towards your launch. The excitement is building as you are leading the way for more diverse explorers in space. May this journey inspire your families and people. As Sophocles said, numberless are the world wonders, but none more wonderful than man. The impact of your mission will cross borders and contribute to a much better world, because ليس هناك حيلة مستحيل. There is no dream beyond reach. Good luck. Godspeed, AX2.
Hi, this is Mark Pathy, mission specialist from AX1, and I'm sending out my warmest greetings to the crew of AX2 as you count down the final days before your big launch. Peggy and John, I'm super excited for both of you. I know you've been waiting a while for this, and maybe a little bit jealous too. But I hope you have a great mission. And Ali and Rayana, although we haven't met, I've heard that you guys are a great addition to the team. Please take good care of my friends up there, and look forward to seeing all of you on the other side. Godspeed, AX2.
I am honored to have the opportunity to speak to all of you, the crew of AX2. You are about to embark on an extraordinary experience. I wish I could join you. I know it's been a great deal of work and effort, but you shall be rewarded. Good luck and Godspeed.
John, Ali, Ray, and of course, dear Peg. You guys must be getting very excited. It's getting real. By now, you're either already or about to be strapped in, comm checks, probably a little chit chat with each other, but most of all, the excitement is building. And I just want to give you a little preview that when the number of digits on the clock goes from 4 down to 3, so 10:00 to 9:59, starts to get pretty real. When it goes from 3 down to 2, 1:00 to 59 seconds, even more so. And you can imagine when it gets below 10 seconds what it's going to feel like. So enjoy the ride, enjoy the sensation of floating, definitely enjoy the view. And from the crew of AX-1, we wish the 4 of you Godspeed.
It's absolutely incredible to be part of this rapidly growing effort and industry. Every mission points to the next, and I hope you feel the energy and anticipation like we can here on the Space Coast. Duke, Kate, this really never gets old. I say that this is my first time at a launch. What's the energy like out at Mission Control at SpaceX?
It's absolutely incredible, and I think you're right. It will never get old. This is just really a fantastic day for AX2, and how great to hear that message from AX1 as words of encouragement. Well, as we've mentioned, this is a privately funded mission, and so what that means is that the origins and primary funding for this mission are coming from places other than national space agencies. So it's not a government-driven effort, which is unique. Axiom Space is pioneering partnerships between us, a commercial entity, directly with nations other than the United States, which may sound like a simple thing, but these kinds of partnerships, especially for the purpose of space exploration, are really covering new ground. We are so proud to be partnering with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for this mission, and while we view this relationship with them as a partnership, they are also our customer. NASA is another customer in this process. They'll actually be paying for some of Commander Peggy Whitson's time while she's on board station to conduct specific science that's of importance to them. So we're very proud to help meet the high demand for science and research in space, while pioneering the expansion of commercial spaceflight.
In addition to the first of their kind partnerships that Duke just mentioned, we also have a strong and growing partnership, SpaceX and Axiom Space. In the spaceflight business, a purely commercial entity paying another purely commercial entity to fly humans to space has been mostly unheard of, but our hope is that it will become more and more common. SpaceX is proud to continue growing our partnerships with Axiom Space, NASA, and other commercial companies who can put our services to good use for the benefit of humanity.
For the AX-1 mission, we introduced a series of digital collectibles, and the response to those were really outstanding. So for this mission, Axiom Space will continue to push the boundaries of Web 3 by partnering with several well-known digital artists and brands to celebrate the continued growth of the commercial space environment. Axiom Space 3 is our program that combines the promise of space exploration with the power of Web 3 blockchain technology. This is a token-gated community network which allows members to engage with astronauts, space technology professionals, and Web3 entrepreneurs. For this mission, we'll kick things off by launching a brand new digital art collection by art blocks artist Nadia Bremer, an astronomer, data visualization designer, and artist. This new art blocks collection will feature a 484-piece algorithmically generated collection that showcases imaginary maps of the stars with unique constellations. To make this collection even more unique, the digital art will actually be initiated from on board the ISS by AX-2 Commander Peggy Whitson. Additionally, the AX-2 digital art collection will feature works by Thank You X, an American artist out of Los Angeles, California. Thank You X is sending up a piece of his physical art canvas to space, titled Urge for Perfection. He will also be releasing a commemorative NFT, which will celebrate this mission and the canvas going to space. This NFT will be available for purchase right at launch, and the sale will close by splashdown. These collaborations with digital artists and brands bring a new level of creativity and inclusivity to commercial space industries like ours. For more on this and all of our digital collectible activities, visit nft.axiomspace.com. There you can also find more instructions on how to get involved and buy your boarding pass to participate in all of the AX-2 activities. Well, the most visible part of Axiom's work today is these missions to the International Space Station. These are just the leading edge of one aspect to the preparation for our real goal: operating a completely commercial space station and laboratory in low Earth orbit. These missions serve as an opportunity to learn and prepare for how to handle logistics, maintenance, schedules, routines, crew volume, and every other aspect of space missions. The roadmap that Axiom Space has created points to some major milestones to evolve our presence in space. They include deploying our own habitation modules and docking them to the front of the International Space Station, deploying our own solar panel and Earth observatory elements, overseeing long-duration space flights of 6 months or more that lead to a permanent presence of commercial activities off-planet, developing spacesuits and other necessary technology to live and work in space, and eventually breaking away from the International Space Station to be 100% independent as a commercial space station. While the launch of the first ever commercial space station module is still a couple years from launch, the process of designing and now manufacturing have been underway since 2015. Here is a bit more
Dragon
on the
SpaceX
current
for
status.
Falcon 9 status update.
Go for Falcon 9 status.
The F9 team is going to take the action to vent the manifold for the pre-briefed Falcon 9 status. This will be a loud venting, so we do expect that you will hear it in the vehicle. They'll be taking that commanding shortly, but just giving you a heads up, you will hear this venting.
Okay, copy. Venting the manifold, and we expect to hear it. Thanks.
All right, so that was SpaceX Core Arthur. And that was SpaceX Core Arthur Barialt, just letting the crew know to expect loud venting noise. Again, that is the primary voice of communication to the crew to update them on status, as well as items like this where they can expect to hear something.
Good heads up for the crew there. So, talking about Axiom Space Station, here's a bit more on the current status, currently under construction.
We are building the world's first commercial space station, one element at a time. We think that what we're doing is for everyone, everywhere. This is a global endeavor. Our partner, Talasolani in Italy, is in the finishing stages of building the first module, the first pressure vessel.
We are here in the integration and manufacturing area of Thales Alenia Space. Here we have the two cones that will be part of the module. Is also the gate to the module to come in and to come out. The very big cylinder that will be the core of the module. Just to have an idea of the dimension of the real module, you can see me compared with the structure. On these ports, all additional modules will be docked. This is the most complex piece of the entire Axiom module.
We're on pace to build a human-rated spaceship faster than anybody's ever built one. When we look at our roadmap, we look to see how we can double its capability every 5 years. It requires a lot of different talents and a lot of different engineering backgrounds, so we've really expanded the team.
I'm working on the time-sensitive network aspect of the space station. So that's the network, have all the flight computers synchronize and actually do the thruster firing at the perfect time.
So this is the command trailer. We're able to control our test stand, which enables us to vary our set pressures, our flow rates into the thruster in order to collect performance data at various OFs and chamber pressure conditions. It's always a blast to come out here, set everything up, and start lighting rockets off.
Behind us, we have the carbon dioxide removal subassembly. We're going to be creating the most integrated ecosystem that has ever been put into space thus far, which is a really cool thing to be able to say.
I fabricate PC boards and cables and harnessing. This is a life-critical job, and you want to make sure you do the best possible job.
15 to 20 years from now, we're going to be surrounded by objects that we can't imagine how we live without, that were manufactured in space. I think there's another promise too, and that's why I'm really excited about the AX2 crew. There is this effect that people have gone to space and had. This is called the overview effect. Many people have come back profoundly changed because of their experience. And I think the more people that we can have that see the world as the whole world, the better off we all are.
Incredible to see how much these missions are able to impact the future of Axiom Station and private astronaut missions. And there's so much more underway that we can't show you just yet, but circling back to the here and now, it's missions like today's that pave the way that's right around the corner. While AX2 will spend less than 2 weeks in space, the value it adds to our discovery and planning process feels like it's years of experience. We're excited for these short duration missions and even more excited to be able to get into long duration missions as we begin to bring Axiom Station online. But before we get there, we still have at least 2 more flights to go, AX3 and AX4. We aren't quite ready yet to talk about the details of dates and crew members, but in the same way we're launching KSA astronauts today, we have also signed agreements with the nations of Turkey to fly some of their national astronauts and other nations. And as it was previously announced, we will be flying a member of the Italian Air Force on an upcoming mission as well. Between these new sovereign nations and the private citizens who now have a way to partake in the marvel of living and working in space, we are truly working to expand access to low Earth orbit for all. And that's not even counting the opportunities to help NASA, ESA, and JAXA find ways to expand their efforts in low Earth orbit.
It's all super exciting news and progress for the future of human spaceflight. We're really looking forward to successful completion of this mission as well as the 2 that are yet to come. Now at the moment, let's check in with John I for another status update.
Just over 70 minutes away as the Axiom 2 crew awaits its 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time liftoff from Launch Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center. You've got a view right now of the crew access arm. The seals along Dragon have actually been deflated. You can see a little bit of a gap between the capsule and the arm. The SpaceX team has left the tower. They're getting out of the hazard area. So everything continues to go on time as we've got the crew in the capsule with all activities complete to date. Currently, weather, you can see the blue skies in the area, some clouds around there. We haven't had any updates that indicate things are better or worse than when we started the webcast. We're still at about a 25% probability of violation, but everything continues to look good. We do